عشاق السفر في كل مكان، تحياتي لإلكم. اليوم عنا فلوق خاص استثنائي. مثل ما بتعرفوا أنا عملت فيديوهات لسوريا، دمشق وحلب ب 2018، وكتير ناس شافت هالفيديوهات هي، وناس صدقت وناس ما صدقت. المهم أنا نقلت الواقع. في يوم من ذات الأيام على صفحة الفيسبوك السندباد اجاني شخص عم بيسألني إنه شلون بدي أنزل على سوريا، وبعثته شلون الطريقة من لبنان، وبعثت له الفيديو اللي هو الخاص في هذا الموضوع. النقطة المهمة إنه اليوم بتواصل معي قال لي أنا نزلت على سوريا ورحت على دمشق وحمص، وهذا الفيديو تبعي شو رأيك فيه؟ الشاب بريطاني، الشاب اسمه شافي راي. حاحط لكم اللينك تبع قناته تحت بوصف الفيديو، تابعوه وشوفوا القناة تبعته ظريفة. الشاب راح على أماكن يمكن أنا ما رحت لها ويمكن في كتير ناس ما بتعرفها. الشاب صراحة عطى فيديو رهيب جميل. هو انصدم شوي بالواقع، تفاجأ، وأنا نفس الوقت ما رجعت شفت الفيديو انصدمت أكتر، تفاجأت أكتر، بس صراحة شدني الحنين أكتر من أي شيء تاني. هذا الشيء حتشوفوه أكتر وحتستمتعوا معي، والفيديو كما هو ما تم التعديل عليه أبدا بشيء، هو حيكون بالإنجليزي، حنحط له ترجمة بالعربي تحت. فجهزوا لحالكم رحلة في سوريا بعيون بريطانية.
Being culturally rich, filled with antiquities, and home to some of the world's oldest cities, pre-war Syria was supposedly a delight to visit. I, however, visited Syria in November 2018 and still found Damascus to be one of the most magical cities I've ever been to. The international image of Syria and its people has now been tarnished, that of a war-torn country filled with extremists. But I'm here to show you a different side to Syria, a beautiful side that still remains despite the war. A side that made me fall in love with the country's cities and people, and has made me eager to return since the moment I left. I took a shared taxi from Beirut to Damascus, where I spent 3 days, before travelling to the city of Homs. I then returned to Lebanon by car from Homs.
So, I've just entered Syria. We crossed the border. It was actually quite an easy process. I thought it would be trickier than it was, but it was fairly easy. And I think we're like 20 minutes from Damascus now. Something like that.
I was initially expecting the border crossing to be fairly rigorous and difficult. However, in the end, the immigration officers didn't even ask why I was going to Syria. Before being able to enter the country there, I did have to organise a visa. After checking into the Al Majid hotel, which was only $35 a night, I went for a walk through the famous Suq al-Hamidiyya.
Okay, I've just arrived in Damascus and I'm walking through Suq, a market called, what's the name of the market again? Suq al-Hamidiyya. It's absolutely stunning in here. I mean, it looks fantastic, but actually being here just feels even more amazing. This is like the complete opposite, really, of what you might expect Syria to look like.
We then walked through the rest of the stunning old city before relaxing at Maqha al-Rawda, a traditional Arabic coffee shop popular with shisha smokers and board game players. The streets of Damascus were bustling and the city felt safe. The following morning, we wandered back into the old city to visit Qasr al-Azam, an old palace built in the 1700s for the governor of Damascus, Asad Basha al-Azam. The traditional Arab architecture here was fascinating to see, and the gardens were beautiful. As it was a Friday, we could hear the call to prayer coming from the famous nearby Umayyad Mosque, in Arabic, a Jam' al-Umawi.
It's quite quiet on the streets of Damascus this morning. Perhaps that's because it's a Friday morning and like Friday prayers are coming up. But yesterday was so busy. Last night was so busy, so perhaps that's just when people go out.
And when I say it was quiet on the streets of Damascus that morning, I mean it. This is Suq al-Hamidiyya on a Thursday night. This is the same place on a Friday morning. In Damascus, things are always shut on a Friday morning, almost without exception. It's a tradition that's been going on for a long time. We then visited a place called Khan Asad Basha, built in the same era as Qasr al-Azam. A khan is an old traveller's inn, which would host foreign caravans regularly. Living quarters would be on the top floor, and the courtyard below was traditionally used as a marketplace for foreign goods. Caravans used to come here from Beirut, Baghdad, Mosul, Aleppo, and elsewhere in the Middle East. We then walked around some of the newer parts of Damascus. While they were still interesting to see, the old city was definitely the highlight. In the distance, we could see Qasyun mountain. Before the war, people used to go up here to admire beautiful views of the city below. However, it is now closed off to the public. We then returned to the old city to visit one of the most spectacular pieces of Islamic architecture, the Umayyad Mosque. This ancient building was completed in the year 715 AD, built on top of an old Byzantine basilica dedicated to John the Baptist. Some Muslims consider it to be the fourth holiest site in Islam. Inside the mosque is a shrine housing the head of John the Baptist, or in Islam, Prophet Yahya. John the Baptist is revered as a major religious figure in both Christianity and Islam. The head of Imam Hussein was also displayed in this mosque in the past. Muslims also believe that Jesus, or Isa, will return to earth towards the end of time, and that he will descend back to earth on this minaret. As a result, the mosque has great religious significance. We then ate some food at this beautiful restaurant called Beit Jibri, which is located in an old Damascus mansion. Many old mansions and houses in Damascus have been converted into traditional restaurants. We then went to the revolving restaurant on top of Sham Hotel, where we had a drink whilst admiring this beautiful view. This building is the Damascus Four Seasons Hotel, which is popular with visiting UN officials. The most expensive rooms here can cost you more than $1,000 a night. We then visited the Sayyida Ruqayya Mosque, which houses the grave of Sayyida Ruqayya, the daughter of Imam Hussein ibn Ali, a revered figure in Shia Islam. As a result, this place is a pilgrimage point for Shia Muslims, with people from Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Pakistan, and elsewhere being in the mosque at the time of my visit. Interestingly, I noticed a donation box saying "Sanduq li Da'am al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya fi Lebanon," meaning a box for supporting the Islamic resistance in Lebanon, with this resistance undoubtedly being Hezbollah. Our final day in Damascus started by visiting the Damascus University campus with a friend. It is the largest and oldest university in Syria, and the campus surely was beautiful. Many foreigners used to study Arabic here. However, since 2011, the numbers have significantly dropped. After that, we visited the Damascus National Museum, which reopened a mere month before our visit. Here, being one of the few foreigners around, I was interviewed on a TV channel about my impressions regarding the museum and of Damascus. I found the museum very interesting, but unfortunately, much of it was still closed off. We then drove to the Bab Shar'i area to visit the underground chapel of Saint Ananias. It was in this chapel that Saint Ananias baptized Saul, who became Paul the Apostle. This ancient structure supposedly dates to the 5th century BC. We then proceeded to walk through the busy market streets nearby Bab Shar'i. Having completed yet another fascinating day in Damascus, we decided to check out one more thing in the city, its nightlife. Bab Shar'i is filled with pubs and nightlife venues. Being inside some of them, you'd be forgiven to think that you're somewhere in Western Europe. I mean, not only was this board written in English, but look what was written at the bottom. The next day in Syria was nothing like the first few. We spent the day in Homs, where my friend's family lives. You begin to see destruction only minutes after leaving Damascus, as the highway passes eastern Ghouta, an area which suffered a lot from the war. Although the main fighting in Homs ended years ago, the ruins are still ever present. However, not all of Homs is in ruins. This famous mosque is currently being rebuilt, and so is the old market of Homs. Bustling streets filled with people are, in some cases, only a 5-minute walk from destroyed neighborhoods. I'd just like to say thank you to my friends in Syria who made this trip possible. The hospitality and welcome that I received in this country was remarkable, despite the hardships that the population has lived through. From the family I stayed with in Homs to the locals I met on the street. Thank you, Syria, and I wish upon you peace and prosperity.